The teases keep on coming for WWE 2K26 as we got our first teaser for NXT. Now this teaser was just like the one we got with the Monday Night Raw Superstars, as they are guessing the cover star for 2K26. But we have some potential roster confirmations and hints at the future of the game, but first let's go over some of those NXT stars and their picks for the cover star. Monroe picks Seth Rollins, Steve Corino, a WWE coach, picks LA Knight. Ethan Page picks either Cody Rhodes or CM Punk. JC Jane suggests herself. Jada Parker picks Stephanie Vaquer. Javon Evans, who is now a Raw star, but was an NXT star by the time this was filmed, picked Jey Uso. Lash Legend, who is now on SmackDown, but was an NXT star also by the time this was filmed, picks Stephanie Vaquer. Lexis King picks his father, Brian Pillman. Lola Vice picks her boyfriend, Damian Priest. Myles Borne picks his partner, Stephanie Vaquer. Obafemi, who was recently called up but hasn't decided on a brand just yet, picks CM Punk. Ricky Saints picks Jey Uso. Sol Ruka picks either Io Sky or Zaruka, which is Zarya and Sol Ruka. Sean Spears says, if it isn't him, who cares? And Trick Williams, who is now a SmackDown superstar but was an NXT star by the time this went up, picks CM Punk or Stephanie Vaquer. Now, the Raw teaser was kind of just whatever. We had a couple of roster confirmations that we figured would probably be in the game. We get a little bit of a tease at CM Punk potentially being a cover star or a focus in this game, and that's kind of stuff we already predicted and leaned toward. But this kind of reveals a lot that we either didn't know or might not have expected going into this game. We'll start with some potential roster confirmations, or at least teases, for WWE 2K26. These teases were either mentioned in this video or shown in this video, which leans toward them potentially being featured in the game's roster. Returning superstars could see Ethan Page, JC Jane, Jada Parker, Javon Evans, Lash Legend, Lexis King, Lola Vice, Obafemi, Sol Ruka, Trick Williams, Sean Spears, Seth Rollins, LA Knight, Damian Priest, and CM Punk. But someone that Lexis King mentioned that we will get into in just a second was Brian Pillman, who hasn't been in a game since WWE 2K17. Some potential debuts to the 2K series include Monroe, who debuted in June of 2025, Myles, who debuted in June of 2022 but rose to prominence in 2024 with No Quarter Catch Crew, and Zarya, who debuted in October of 2024, as well as WWE's coach, Steve Corino, a former ECW wrestler. Corino hasn't appeared in a video game since ECW Anarchy Rules in 2000 and has never stepped foot into a WWE video game. But before we get into him and Brian Pillman, Trick Williams was holding the TNA Championship around his waist. That means that this video was filmed around October or before that, because he lost that championship at Bound for Glory in October. That also could tease TNA potentially being a part of this game somehow, but that title was blurred. But so was the NXT title, the North American title, and the NXT Women's Championship. So I think, despite him having the TNA Championship, it's not really featured prominently. You can maybe write that off or just look past that as maybe not a tease, but just something that happened to make it into the video. A little side note not related to the video at all is Tommaso Ciampa possibly making it into 2K26, because there were some reports that he wouldn't be returning to the company and that his contract would run out. Today, as of recording, Tommaso Ciampa has announced that and confirmed that he will not be re-signing with the WWE. However, I think it is far too late into the cycle. He has played a relatively pivotal role in the last year, especially in the SmackDown Tag Division, and his very recent feud with Ilya Dragunov. I think Ciampa makes it into the game this year, but is absolutely not making it into the next year's installment unless he somehow makes a return to the WWE. So Ciampa, it'll be very sad to see him go, but I do think this will be his last game, because I think he is definitely making it into this installment. And I said I would get into Steve Corino and Brian Pillman in a second, but before I get into that, Ricky Saints was labeled as Ricky Saints with the word Starks over Saints. So that could tease at Ricky Starks potentially being included in this game somehow. I saw some speculation on X, specifically from Game Vault, that this could be a showcase matchup. Ricky Starks and CM Punk had a feud in AEW that saw them have several matches, one match of which was supposed to take place at All Out 2023, but CM Punk got fired from AEW. The match never took place. So maybe we could create history in this showcase with CM Punk taking on Ricky Saints. And I think that would be very fun. I think it's fun to spin off the AEW storyline that we really never got to see play out. But another potential showcase lead-in that I haven't really seen anyone talking about, because the videos I've kind of watched, people either don't know who Steve Corino is or haven't really mentioned him or just kind of graze over it because he's a coach. But I think Steve Corino could absolutely make his debut into the 2K series. And that also leads toward the CM Punk showcase, because he had multiple matches with CM Punk across Ring of Honor and PWG, and they also teamed for some time in Ring of Honor. So I think they could call back to that, and I don't think they'll use Ring of Honor or PWG matches and probably not footage, but I think they could do some sort of create history match and get that match in an ECW or WWE of some sort, and we could get Steve Corino in the game through the showcase. Steve Corino is someone who didn't really even cross my mind, but I think he's been signed to the WWE for quite a few years as a coach and maybe a producer, but he does a lot of work down in NXT. And Steve Corino, I'm not too familiar with his work, but I am familiar enough to know he's pretty good, and that I would love to see him in a game. I think this is kind of similar to Abyss and New Jack being featured in last year's DLC, because Steve Corino, to my knowledge, didn't step foot in a WWE ring, or at least not in a super prominent role. So this, mainly comparable to New Jack, is someone who used to be in ECW, didn't really have too big of a role in ring in the WWE, now making it into the video games, but also very comparable to Abyss, who is a backstage producer that never stepped foot into a WWE ring, a former TNA star. So Steve Corino, I would be very happy to see him in the game, and I think this could absolutely tease him being in the game. But before I mention Brian Pillman a little more, we got some teases of the Attitude Era. Now, I know we talked about the ruthless aggression potential integration with this game, and that's what the scratch logo would represent. It's probably Attitude Era. I know a lot of people threw that around. I just would love to see some ruthless aggression stuff, because we haven't gotten enough love to that era, and we've gotten so much love to the Attitude Era, and rightfully so. It is one of the most fondly recognized eras in wrestling history, but I love ruthless aggression. I would love to see some of that in the game. But Attitude Era, I don't think we'll get an Attitude Era mode. I think if we do get a CM Punk showcase and CM Punk is on the base cover, I don't think you need an Attitude Era mode. I think it would be a very fun inclusion, but I don't think they would look toward adding 2 showcases in. But I do think Attitude Era could have some sort of integration with the MyRise. I talked about how the MyRise could be ruthless aggression integrated somehow with kind of calling back to the 2K23 women's MyRise, as that story started off with your character's aunt in the ruthless aggression era, and you got to see Triple H and John Cena and a bunch of stars from that era. I think that would be very cool to do with the Attitude Era and just focus entirely on it, and your star is growing up in the Attitude Era with Austin and Rock, but Vince McMahon, maybe Mick Foley, a lot of names could probably have to be omitted from that, so it would make it not fully possible, but I do think it is somewhat possible and would be pretty fun. But this also bounces off of the Logan Paul promotional teaser / leak we saw in his vlog with the scratch logo on WWE 2K26, because I've kind of been yapping about Attitude Era too much. I think we're getting Attitude Era Edition. I think we're going to get an Ultimate or Deluxe Edition for the Attitude Era. And I think one of the bonuses could maybe be Brian Pillman. Now, Brian Pillman is a star of WCW and kind of the Attitude Era, but we haven't seen Brian Pillman since WWE 2K17. However, the 2 games in the 2K / mainline franchise that we saw him debut / return in were WWE 13, which was the Attitude Era mode. He was featured as a DLC star with his Attitude Era look. He was cut from the game for a couple of years, and then he returned in WWE 2K16, which had the Stone Cold Steve Austin showcase, mainly integrated with the Attitude Era. Now, Pillman's match in that showcase was his WCW, I believe, Clash of Champions match against Stunning Steve Austin, but you would also unlock the Loose Cannon alongside that, and the Loose Cannon Brian Pillman would return in WWE 2K17 bouncing off of that. So I think if we're getting another Attitude Era integrated mode or edition, Brian Pillman could be a solid add-on to all of that, and he could be a nice addition to the game, as well as just a regular base roster member. I've predicted him as DLC for 2K25 and 2K26, but I would much rather see him in base game because you can get him a lot sooner and get even more characters into the DLC. So I think it would be fun to see Brian Pillman featured. And I forgot to even mention this at the beginning. The reason I'm talking about Attitude Era is because during showing flashes between graphics, just like we saw the graphic with CM Punk hell froze over that I thought might have been an accident, but it seems to actually be a tease. This time we got a flash just like that, but it's the old set. It says WWF Attitude, and there's a shit ton of signs. You can easily tell it is Attitude Era related. So I think this has to do with the scratch logo, and I think this could be a huge part of WWE 2K26. I think also if you want a bonus for the Attitude Era edition that I'm kind of throwing together and fantasy creating in my head, you could get a bonus attire or look or cover for Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker, and several other big names from that era. I'm not really an Attitude Era guy, much more Ruthless Aggression guy, but every time we've gotten some sort of Attitude Era integration in these games, I eat it up. I love it, and I would love to see some sort of Attitude Era mode or edition in WWE 2K26. Now, I'm filming this on Wednesday around noontime Eastern, so I guess we could still get another reveal today. We saw the Raw Superstars predict the cover on Monday, the NXT Stars predict the cover on Tuesday, so I think we're getting these SmackDown Stars predicting the cover on Friday. I know it's kind of drawing things out a little more, but I do think we will see a trailer and or a cover reveal this Saturday at Saturday Night's Main Event, or this upcoming Monday, the Monday following, the Monday before Royal Rumble, or if you really want to push it out, maybe we see something the morning before Royal Rumble begins in Saudi Arabia. I think that's very possible, but I do think your SmackDown teasers could include the likes of Jade Cargill, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax, Ilya Dragunov, Sami Zayn, Johnny Gargano, Drew McIntyre, The Miz, Cody Rhodes, Carmelo Hayes, names like that. And I think it could be very fun to see some of those guesses. And I think we will also get a tease at what our third edition / cover will be, if I am spot on with Punk and Attitude Era being 2 of the 3 covers. So let me know what you think of all of this information. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more videos like this going into WWE 2K26. Click the link at the end of the video to find my video from yesterday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.